Hi, everyone, and welcome back to the Academic Insights series, where we look at all of the 2023 ARK Invest big ideas. Today we have Tayler McCracken. I'll let Tayler introduce himself, but today we're going to look into the big idea of Bitcoin. Tayler, thank you, and over to you, my friend.
Thanks. Yeah, thanks for having me back on. It's, I really enjoy this series that you're doing. So for anybody who doesn't know, I'm Tayler. I'm the editor-in-chief for the Coin Bureau. I've been working in blockchain technology for between 3 and 4 years, holding various positions as a quality control analyst. I've worked support and just like to dive into research around cryptocurrencies and blockchain technology. I find this whole industry very fascinating. So today we're going to be, like Justin said, covering the big ideas report from ARK Invest and just the portion on Bitcoin. So I'm kind of looking forward to that. Justin, what did you think of the Bitcoin report section?
I think that that section was more focused on the adoption aspect and not really on the technology. And I think that we've done different interviews before, and some the viewers know me, but some of the people who have seen me in the past, they know that when it comes to Web3, they know I'm all about the technology and all about all of the things and capabilities of these particular protocols and projects. So whenever I look at Bitcoin, I look at what it can do from a technological perspective, what it can do, for a positive global impact perspective. That's the way I really look at it. So, that's my 2 cents. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so, I'm a huge fan of ARK Invest and the work that Cathie Wood does. She's one of my favorite thought leaders in the space. But I was a bit disappointed with the Bitcoin section. I felt it was very quite flat. Like you were saying, I felt it didn't go into enough in-depth research. And for me, my specialty isn't on the technological side of things. I consider myself more of a, how can this benefit society and humanity as a whole, right? Society. And I kind of look at blockchain adoption from a more human perspective. And I felt the report was, and maybe it makes sense because they are, an investment firm, but they only focused on number go up, right? Like they're showing charts and they were contrasting, they're showing Bitcoin's growth over the past few years. I'm like, yeah, that's great. Like Bitcoin's growing. And that's kind of all it touched on. And I'm like, okay, yes, it's grown, but they didn't talk about, well, where is it going and what is it doing? So it was quite a short section, and yeah, everything was just kind of showing where Bitcoin was a few years ago and then where is Bitcoin at today. And long before my time in blockchain technology, I worked as a financial advisor. So a lot of what we did was kind of forward analysis on companies and kind of trying to project where things could be going in the future. And I was really quite surprised that this ARK Invest report didn't really touch on that. It didn't make me excited about Bitcoin as a user or an investor, really. And I am somebody who avidly loves Bitcoin. I do honestly believe it's got the capabilities of making the world a better place. And as soon as I heard that ARK Invest was going to be talking about Bitcoin in a report, I thought it was just going to be incredible. I thought it was going to be really insightful. I thought it was going to be a lot of, fuel for optimism and kind of bring more people in the space. But yeah, it didn't kind of instill any excitement in me from, an investor point of view or a use case point of view. And I thought that was really quite a shame. So I don't know what your thoughts are on that. If you agree, disagree.
I agree with you, and I think that we're on the same page for a lot of different things. So if you were the editor-in-chief for this ARK Invest report, what would you include in the report, and what would that report kind of be focused on?
Man, Bitcoin's exciting. There's a lot of things that I would have put into it, like especially just in this past year, we're seeing how there's a nuclear plant in Miami that just got the green light to start. They're going to start mining Bitcoin using nuclear energy because Bitcoin's always got this narrative it's bad for the environment and everything else. And on the Coin Bureau channel, we spend a lot of time, energy, and effort trying to dispel that myth, because Bitcoin mining it is doing a lot of good for the world as well. I was just kind of doing some deep diving into it, and I learned about there's places in Africa where they're using hydroelectric energy to mine Bitcoin, and any excess energy is actually going to communities who don't have electricity. So it's providing electricity to impoverished families in Africa, which I think is really cool. I was reading about there's a hotel that's using Bitcoin miners to heat the hotel, and there's been more and more stories like that popping up. People are using Bitcoin miners to heat their house now because it gives off a lot of heat. And it's just, man, you can talk for hours about it. I mean, we're seeing inflation is just ravaging the world right now. And there's families in Lebanon and Venezuela and Argentina that are holding on to Bitcoin as a life raft. So not only are we seeing Bitcoin as an exciting technology, but people are it's I don't want to sound like I'm being over dramatic and by saying it's saving lives, but I honestly believe it is. Lebanon is having a pension crisis right now, and they're not going to be able to pay out pensions. Their ATMs are out of cash, and the Lebanese are adopting Bitcoin at a faster rate than most other countries right now because they need something. They need access to some kind of a monetary system. Yeah, and sorry, I made some notes here. Vancouver's working on heating the city by Bitcoin mining. I have no idea how they're planning on doing that, but they're looking at kind of using just excess heat from these miners, and they're going to be using it to heat some of their buildings and things like that. So it's like, why not? And something else that Bitcoin's really good at is Bitcoin miners they source the cheapest source of electricity, which is always going to be renewable energy. So not only are we seeing ways that Bitcoin is stabilizing energy grids, but we're also finding that in 2020, they found that Bitcoin is using like 58% sustainable energy or something like that. Don't quote me on this. I'm not an expert, but they compared that to just 12% of the traditional sector using renewable energy. So Bitcoin's really kind of getting a bad rap, but of all the industries out there, Bitcoin is using it's got the highest ratio of using renewable energy than any other industry right now. So I think it's doing a lot of good for the world, and I do think they're trying to make it as sustainable as possible. So I was really kind of disappointed that the ARK Invest report wasn't really touching on not only is Bitcoin better now than it was 10 years ago, but it's just getting better and better as we go forward. So I kind of felt that was a real oversight.
Got you. So I know that, yeah, because you dropped some knowledge right there. I was not aware of the whole nuclear plant in it was in Florida, correct?
Yeah, Florida.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to check that one out. But I know Jack Dorsey. I know Jack Dorsey that in the past. I know Jack Dorsey. They said Jack Dorsey was going to be doing mining using hydrogen energy, and I know that you're from Canada, and one of my peers, Justina Soska, she's the CEO of Women in Blockchain Canada. Shout out to her. She was telling me that Canada has a high dependence upon hydro energy, right? So based on your experience in dealing with that, do you know what the regulations are in terms of Bitcoin mining in Canada? And do you see like, hydrogen mining being like one thing? Because you caught my attention where, like, I have a note here where it says, tech mining, and now, the sustainability advocates, including myself, they're absolutely against, Bitcoin mining because it gives off, so much heat and it's impactful for the environment. But can this get flipped? I don't think I'm clear my question, but can this get flipped where we can actually now say Bitcoin mining is having a positive impact on sustainability because it's reusing that renewable energy and doing things like you said, heating homes and things like that with the Bitcoin miners? Does that make sense?
It does make sense. So there's a couple other people that are really using Bitcoin miners in quite ingenious ways. Like there is an old coal mine in Pennsylvania, and it's shut down, and there's just wasted coal is just all over the landscape there. Nobody's using it. It's just like a dumping ground for this old coal that was never used. And a Bitcoin miner set up shop there, and he's actually using all this wasted coal that was just sitting there, and he's burning it in a sustainable fashion that's not polluting, and he's running his Bitcoin miners off it. I mean, I don't know what the impact of the pollution is, but this is otherwise just coal that was already mined. So the damage has already been done to the environment through mining the coal, and now all the coal is just sat there wasted. So he's putting it to use mining Bitcoin with it. And then, of course, there's the story with the flare gas as well. So a lot of Bitcoin miners are now catching just methane flares and natural gas flares. So, it doesn't take a lot of looking into the way we source energy to find out that we're actually incredibly inefficient with it. I was reading one report here that it was something, hold on, I got my little notes here. But in 2020, in the state of California alone, 1.5 million megawatt hours of solar energy was just produced in excess and wasted. It was just released, and so we're basically there's a huge chunk of energy that we're actually sourcing that we just can't use, and we're flaring it off in the environment. It's just burning out in the energy grid. It's not being used. It's not being utilized. So we are not efficient sourcers of energy in nearly any capacity. It doesn't matter if it's hydroelectric or if it's these methane gas flares or whatever we're doing up in the oil patches. So what I find really interesting is there's these ingenious Bitcoin miners that are actually grabbing this energy that's just otherwise wasted, and they're using it to also mine Bitcoin. So yes, it is using a lot of energy, but it's also capturing energy that's just otherwise being wasted. So why not put it to use and mine Bitcoin with it, right? So I think that's kind of a really important factor there with what they're doing with it. And then I think everybody's heard the old cliches as well that Bitcoin mining is getting a really bad rap, but kids playing computer games uses exponentially more energy than Bitcoin mining. People's Christmas lights. And a lot of people will have the argument and say that, well, I mean, yeah, playing video games uses more energy than Bitcoin mining, but at least it's something, it's doing something. And a lot of people think that Bitcoin's not doing anything. But I think a lot of us look through the scope of being from privileged Western nations, right? So in Canada and America and, these Western countries, is Bitcoin a matter of life and death? No. I mean, would life go on tomorrow if we didn't have it? Yeah, absolutely. But we seem to forget that there are billions of people on the planet who don't have access to a financial system. They don't have access to a bank account, and these people are using Bitcoin. So when people say Bitcoin has no use, and they'll complain about the energy usage, but they don't care about our Christmas lights, our clothes dryers, and kids playing computer games, I kind of fight back at that. And I'm like, I'm sorry, but banking a significant portion of the population and providing people with financial freedom is a hell of a lot stronger use case than kids wanting to play Fortnite, in my opinion. So yeah, I mean, I think there's a hell of a good use case for it. And yeah, it uses a lot of energy, but I think it's important, and we're becoming more and more efficient with it all the time. There's some GPU chips now that are being created by NVIDIA, and I think Intel's on the boat as well. And they are motivated to create these chips that are using less energy to mine Bitcoin more efficiently. So, I mean, it's just getting better, right? As well.
Yeah, excellent. Yeah, and I know that we were talking a lot, about the environmental aspects of Bitcoin. I think we both were passionate about sustainability and things like that, but let's kind of shift to the impact of the financial, aspects, the financial impacts, of Bitcoin globally. Again, you make an excellent point where, we here in these countries, in Canada, in the US, we're focused on the positive and the monetary impacts of Bitcoin. But you make a good point where let's kind of reframe it. Look through a different lens of those emerging economies, those people that are unbanked, who can't bank, right? And the impact of Bitcoin on those particular economies. Stocks and compared to fiat, compared to Bitcoin, and we're talking about how not only are we looking at not only looking at Bitcoin from a international perspective, but also from a local perspective, because we had within the last couple of months, we had runs on the bank, and now we're at the point where the reality is actually setting in of why Bitcoin was created in the first place. You see?
Man, I love that you brought that up. Yeah, I mean, I completely agree. Something I find absolutely fascinating right now is with the banking crisis that's happening in the United States right now, and Bitcoin is thriving in this environment. And I just think that it's so fascinating to watch this, because this is exactly why Bitcoin was created. So seeing Bitcoin live up to its use case and its potential and why it was created in the first place, I find it absolutely fascinating. Sometimes I've got a friend and we joke about how whether or not Satoshi was Nostradamus, right? Like the guy whoever invented Bitcoin, whether it was a group of people or a single person, they seem to have this this dystopian vision of the future, and they wanted to give humanity the tools to kind of prepare to defend ourselves against it. And now when we're seeing this banking collapse in the US, it's like, I don't know, it's just amazing seeing that something that was developed now 14 years ago is just living up to exactly what it was created for. It's incredible to see this. So people are flocking to Bitcoin because it's safe. Your dollars in the banks aren't safe if the banks are going under. So yeah, where else are you going to put it? And that's Bitcoin.
Yeah. I like how you put, the vision that they had, because not only was that vision spot on, and this is one thing I talk to a lot of my students about. It's like, at the end of the day, regardless of what the technology is and things like that, at the end of the day, we're still going to be dealing with humans, right? It's like with this whole AI GPT thing, right? At the end of the day, we're still dealing with humans. So we need to look at the ethical, issues with that, and see how people are going to try to break this thing, how to crack it, how to use it for malicious ways, how to use it for monetary gain and things like that. That's what we need to be focused on right now. Because like I said, we're still dealing with humans. We're dealing with humans in a time of inflation, in a time of recession. So now we have the tools where there can be some very bad things to get done, right? So what I was getting at is that what amazes me the most is that Bitcoin has been battle tested so many times, and it hasn't been hacked. There's been no vulnerabilities found. Where we have some of the best projects within Web3 that gets audited by the top auditing firms, and they still get hacked, right? That's what's amazing to me, so it's been battle tested. It's been battle tested many times. Whenever I've been talking to some people about quantum computing. So whenever, this whole quantum computing thing emerges, I'm still curious on how that's going to impact blockchain, because Bitcoin is going to be the Bitcoin blockchain is going to be the first one that gets tested, right? So
Absolutely.
do you have anything to add in that regard?
Man, I wish I did. I wish I knew more about quantum computing. And I do know there are a few blockchain projects that are claiming quantum computing resistance. Like I believe Algorand's one. I think ICP is another one. IOTA, I believe, is one as well. And but I don't really know how you can. I'm certainly not a computer scientist, but I don't really know how you can claim that your blockchain is quantum computing resistant if it hasn't been tested yet, and if we haven't even fully rolled out quantum computing capabilities yet. That's kind of like saying I just created something that's bulletproof, but I've never fired a bullet at it. So how do I know if it's bulletproof, right? It will be interesting to see what happens with Bitcoin. And I have heard arguments on both sides of the fence as well about why quantum computer isn't going to be a risk. I've read why it is going to be a risk. But yeah, to be honest, this is not my area of expertise. I don't know if Bitcoin developers are going to have to upgrade the encryption algorithm that Bitcoin uses, or what's going to have to happen. But I also don't even know how far away we truly are from quantum computing as well. I believe China came out in recent months and said that they've built the first fully fledged quantum computer, but it hasn't been verified. And it's like, are they just flexing? Does this thing exist? So yeah, I have no idea, but that will be a test to see whether or not Bitcoin can survive that, for sure. That'll be an interesting one.
Yeah. Yeah, and the open questions you have are the open questions of even some of the scientists that are actually looking at quantum computing. Because what got me into quantum computing was I was at the Wilson Center down in Washington, D.C. doing a presentation for some research I did for them. And some of the policymakers asked the question during the event of, okay, what's the threat of quantum computing on blockchain? Right. And there's a scientist that was a chief scientist for they developed decentralized ledger technologies, for the government, and he said that he was at a conference 2 weeks ago, and he said that other scientists said that some scientists said that we're going to see a threat to quantum computing in 5 years, right? And then other scientists said there's not going to be a threat to quantum computing in our lifetime, right?
Wow. Yeah.
We have two different schools of thought by the same people that's researching the same topic, right? So that's why I kind of ask a lot of people to say, kind of what's your thoughts on that? Because I know that they're saying that lattice-based cryptography is considered quantum resistant. But I did some research a couple of months ago, I should say, and NIST, National Institute of Science and Technology, they were doing a multi-year contest, I guess, where they invited people to create these protocols to become quantum resistant. Like they want to create standards, right? They wanted to create international standards that would be considered quantum resistant, right? So this was a multi-year project. It was a multi-year project. There were, I think, two or three finalists, and then they brought people in to try to hack it, right? So they spent all this research time trying to develop these quantum resistant algorithms, right? Then they brought in these hackers, and then one of them got hacked. One of them got hacked in, I think, one of them got hacked in less than an hour, put it that way, right? One of them got hacked in less than an hour, and they were working on this thing for over a year, right? Got hacked in less than an hour, and it got hacked within like a matter of months or something like that, right? During this contest. So, these scientists are saying, okay, this is a little bit alarming. we made all this investment and we were focused on creating quantum resistant algorithms, and it gets hacked in less than an hour, right?
Yeah, so, I mean, I think focusing on Bitcoin as well is pretty small in the grand scheme of the impacts of quantum computing. Right. I was listening to this one, I can't remember what the podcast was, but they were talking about the effects on just technology in general in the face of quantum computing threats. And they're saying, think about things like all of our bank accounts are going to be just easily swiped. Anything in the modern day financial systems we know it today, a quantum computer is going to be able to hack straight into that, like a hot knife through butter, basically. And they're also talking about things like nuclear launch codes. So, I mean, pretty well everything that runs on the internet today, which is everything, is at risk. So it's a lot more than just being concerned about Bitcoin, right? It's we might not even have a world left to use Bitcoin if these quantum computers get their hands on these nuclear launch codes and all this crazy stuff, right?
Yeah, and I think that was one of the arguments of one of the scientists, where they were going to say, okay, once quantum computing happens, your Bitcoin wallet is probably the last thing they're concerned with. The hackers are concerned with. They're trying to get codes. They're trying to get into the Department of Treasury. They're trying to get into all these high stakes accounts and things like that, right? They're going for, they're trying to go for these whale Bitcoin wallets, so yeah, that's going to be the last thing. That's going to be kind of like the last thing. But based on what quantum computing is, can they just do like a huge wave swipe of all the Bitcoin wallets and things like that? We don't know, right? Yeah, so yeah, that's why to me, yes, you're going to say, yeah, my wallet, my account might be of least concern, but can they just do a whole entire swipe? All the holders on this contract, give me that. right?
Yeah, exactly.
Is that kind of a risk from a quantum computing perspective? We don't know. So yeah, those are the things that keep me up at night. Those are the kind of things that I that I think about from a nerdy perspective.
No, absolutely. Yeah, it's a real concern, man. And it's also disconcerting when the scientific community can't come up with the consensus on things either. That's something that worries me a lot. And it seems to come up a lot as well. Like, it doesn't matter if you're talking about health or, this whole vaccine thing that was rolling out. It's, when the scientific community cannot reach a consensus when they're looking at the same data, that's something that always concerns me. And it leaves me as a simpleton. I'm like, well, how do I know what to believe? I was like, if people way smarter than me can't figure this out, what hope do I have? So yeah, it
Right.
keeps me up at night as well, but it shouldn't, because because I don't even understand it.
Right. Yeah. It's like that's what you get paid for. But that's the world we live in. But I mean, I guess that from a scientific perspective, from a research perspective, I mean, we've always had different schools of thought, right? And that's kind of essentially why we collaborate, right? But from my perspective, where we've gotten is that a lot of these academic institutions are running their institutions like businesses, right? Because of the cuts, from a government perspective, from a state perspective, they're running these organizations like businesses. It's become competitive in a space, and like that collaboration has kind of went away by the wayside. And without that collaboration, you kind of have these silos of thought. I think that's one of the reasons why we are kind of having the disagreements that we're having now. So I think that if we kind of look to move back toward this collaboration, we can kind of get further clarity, so that these people aren't kind of keeping their data, keeping their thought, keeping their ideas to themselves, just so they can get the funding, right? Because it's become so competitive. So yeah, that's my thoughts from an academic perspective. Anything else you want to add in terms of this study? We've been going on this one for a while.
No, I think we hit it. It's just I hope, if nothing else, that we kind of got some people thinking about different use cases for Bitcoin mining and the future of Bitcoin and what it can do. And maybe we've sparked enough of an interest for people to kind of take away some info from this meeting and go do some of their own research and come up with their own opinions, and don't just believe, you read a headline that says Bitcoin mining's bad and, is it? I'm not so convinced it is, but like anything, do your own research, form your own opinions, and see what you think.
All right, Taylor, once again, welcome. Thanks for coming back. Thank you for your time. And if this is the first time you've listened to this channel, subscribe, like, and subscribe. But also check out the other interviews that Taylor has done. One interview Taylor's done was on financial literacy with the Stellar Development Foundation, and then Taylor also did another interview on the on VeChain, on testing the desirability of tracking carbon emissions on the blockchain with our VeChain Foundation research study. So check those out along with this one. This one will be a part of the Bitcoin section of the academic insights of the Coin Bureau website. So check it out. And everyone else, until next time. Thanks.